For the first time since their original release in the early 90s, we are seeing this colorway make a comeback for this model. Hey guys, welcome back to our Kicks Reasons channel, and today we're looking at the highly anticipated Reebok Pump Twilight Zone in this signature original colorway that we haven't seen since the early 90s, very early 90s, over 30 years ago, for this iconic model that everybody loved back in the day. And I'm pretty sure most of the fans of the brand are very excited about. Now, of course, I was very surprised seeing this model coming back late last year when initially some images surfaced the internet. And to be honest with you, not only surprised that this model is coming back, but the changes that Reebok makes. So I'm going to get out of the way the negatives that are coming to my mind when I'm talking about this model, and I'm going to talk to you about what was preserved and what was done correctly. So Reebok brought this iconic model to us. First and foremost, most of you probably already know, we don't have the ERS system, we don't have the ERS branding, it's not showing in the back. Basically, they use the molding for the Pump Omnizone 2, and they slapped it on this one and called it the TZ. Now, I'm not sure why they did the TZ abbreviation, maybe because it's not the same shoe, it's not the Twilight Zone that we remember from back in the day, or maybe there's some rights naming issue with the Twilight Zone TV series. I'm not sure, although back in the day they were released as Twilight Zone. So it is what it is for all of us original Reebok heads. This is the Twilight Zone, and it always will be. Doesn't matter what they call it, TZ or whatever else. Now, I'm not really that upset about the lack of ERS. Yes, of course, would I've loved to see the original tech or modern representation of the original tech coming back. I would have loved to see it because the Omnizone 1, when it was released 10 years ago for the retro, and the previous releases of the Twilight Zone featured it. But we know how it goes, those molds getting destroyed, and to create a new mold costs a lot of money, $120,000, maybe more. So obviously, where they wanted to save some money is reuse that Omnizone 2, which is very similar molding. The only difference being is the hexalite, because the original Omnizone 1 and the Twilight Zone and a few other models featured the older, or getting older at the time, ERS. And the new hexalite was in play, which was a big push from Reebok, as it was a very new and very good cushioning system. Anyway, what else is not here? Just like on the previous retros, we don't have a full foot pump system. We only have it on a forefoot. The original Twilight Zone was the flagship at the time, and it was released for $130, which was a lot of money back in the day, but featured a full foot pump system. What that means is not only your forefoot, where your thumb is getting pumped, but around your heel as well. And most of the high top models, and this was considered a very high top model, this was the highest, the high top models, they were featuring this full foot system because it was tailored more to bigger players, centers, big forwards. When they play basketball, they liked, or at the time, people believed that more support around your ankle is going to be more beneficial. Hence, you've seen Shaquille O'Neal when he was playing, he had a special made versions of his retail shoes. They were higher, they featured more of an all-around pump system, so he felt more comfortable with these and more secure in his feet. Obviously, nowadays, to create this kind of similar technology and having a full foot pump system would have made this shoe a lot more expensive. And we know how it goes. The pump system is not even the same as it was before. It's a different maker, it barely pumps, and this goes for this one as well. Yeah, you can hear and feel the air coming inside, but it's not like the original ones. You have to be really strong with your thumb or your other fingers to be able to put some air inside. And of course, there'll be no air around your heel. Now, the good things, and I'm gonna point that out right away, Reebok kept genuine leather where genuine leather is needed. And this is the toe box. So the toe box is the most important thing for me to have genuine leather. And obviously I'm not as upset about having synthetics all around on the heel and around where the lace loops are and the back portion of the shoe, because they're not gonna bend, they're not gonna crease that much. And if you're wearing your shoes, bending on the genuine leather, it makes them even more beautiful in my mind. They look amazing. And bending synthetic leather looks absolutely horrible and eventually cracks and peels and gets destroyed. So they spent the money where it needs to spend it and kept the genuine, very nice, soft and thick leather on the toe box and a toe box guard with a slight little underlay that is synthetic, but that is more for rigidity, not for anything else. I'm not offended about this one. The writing Reebok and basketball is stitched in. It's not painted like we saw many models released 10 and more years ago. They were just painting those, but being stitched is just like the original, and I absolutely love it. The branding on the lateral side, Reebok, is almost similar to the original one. I think the original one might have been a little bit bigger. It was kind of a more pronounced, but we're missing the R, or reserved branding, above the O. That was the part of the original branding as well. The heel was very clean on the original pair. I really like that part. There was no anything written over here. The only thing that was written on the side below the Reebok was the ERS, which we don't have here, so we don't need to be having it on the shoe that doesn't have the technology. They aged the midsole a little bit, so it looks a little bit older. I think it would have been better to be a shade lower, not as aged, because the contrast between the upper and the midsole is quite significant, especially when you have them in hand. It's slightly more yellow than it should be, but still, I'm not offended about it, and I'm going to still be wearing them and enjoy them the way they are without any problems. The stitching on the toe box is not existing. We have just the faux stitching, just like the Omnizones. I know it's, again, you know, cost saving measurements right there, but again, I'm not offended about this specific change as well. They tried to kept the inner liner very similar to the original one, very plush, that same feeling of these towel socks that we had in the late 80s and the early 90s. So the padding is significant around the heel. Again, we're missing the pump system there, but they added a lot of padding, so the shoe is very comfortable. These are produced in October of 22, so very recently, and I'm so happy they brought this same level of these plastic sides, you know, the black and gray. This was sort of a Reebok patented reinforced lacing system. When you pull, really these plastics kept your foot in place, and they were really nice. Of course, Omnizone featured similar technology. They were just different designs, and of course, slightly different designs meant the original designer of this shoe is Miss Judy Close, and she was doing an incredible job back in the day with the Omnizone line, with the Twilight Zone line, with the Blacktop line, and of course, later with the Shack line. She was keeping Reebok on top of the industry at the time. The difference, of course, price difference, like I mentioned, $130 back in the day. Omnizone costed $110, so $20 went for that all-around pump system, which everybody wanted because, of course, why not? It was the best to have. Now, there was several other original colorways. Most iconic one is the neon that everybody wanted, and the neon green, of course, I'm talking about. But then there was the neon red, which was also very highly sought after. And this was kind of like the more muted, the black and gray, which I also liked. There was not a single colorway that I didn't like back in the day. But the colors were very matching to what the timing was, late 80s, early 90s. Everybody wanted more color, more pop. And obviously, to me, the biggest and the most iconic was this bright orange pump on the black background that you can see from almost a mile away. I remember kids wearing these, and you can see somebody on the street from far away. You knew immediately they were talking about pumps. And everybody wanted this shoe. Everybody wanted the pump. Everybody wanted to have a pump on their shoe because it was the best technology at the time. It was the most hype one, and everybody wanted it. Just for example, if you had money to buy any shoes and you had not enough to get the pump, you know, obviously myself, including my first ones, didn't have the pump, but I remember getting Reebok, and I was so happy that I have a Hexalite. But kids that had the pump, I was always envious because, you know, that's the first thing you see, obviously, is the big and giant pump. So whatever Reebok keep doing with their midsoles, this midsole is incredibly soft. And even the fact that we don't have the original style or type of Hexalite, the shoes are very comfortable, very soft. And they did this change across many models, the Omnizones as well. I've seen other models coming in, and I'm gonna show you a couple other ones very soon that are with similar compound. That helps a lot with the comfort, and I'm glad that Reebok invested some money in engineering to change the formula to make it more softer. The insole is nothing special. It's just running out of the mill. Not even Reebok Athletics. They didn't go to the extent of recreating the original insole, which had the Reebok in ERS. Obviously, I guess ERS is not there, but they could just slap this Reebok without the vector, because at the time, Reebok did not have vector displayed on the shoe. hence you know, it's a little bit different. The insole is just not even ortholite, so again, it's a little bit more cost saving there. Not really offended about it. Would have loved to see something better. Yeah, 100%. But just having this shoe, this silhouette is so iconic. And last time I didn't buy it in 2012 when it came out because the molds, I'm sorry, but if you guys remember, the molds were with a banana shape. I really hated this. I really hated the way the shoe was curving up. And I remember the original one, when you put it on a flat surface, it stayed flat. It needed to be flat. And these new molds they created for the Omnizone, it's exactly like that. The bottom is completely flat, the shoe is flat, and you have a gradual slope on the top where it needs to be, just like and very similar like to the original one. Obviously the original one has a little bit different. I remember the leather from the toe box being up a little bit, kind of a more square right here. But again, those are minor details. Not a lot of people will remember, only people like me. They've spent countless amount of hours holding these in stores in hand, sniffing them around like a weird kid. But still, I'm so glad they brought these back. They're definitely worth it. And if you have any doubts, go out there, get yourself a pair. Get yourself back into the time machine in the early 90s so you can feel like me as a teenager walking around. Well, I didn't have them, but I went to the stores and I was pretending that I can walk around with these and enjoy them, which I can finally do now after 30 years. Huge thank you to Reebok and the project manager that brought these back to life. Hopefully we're gonna see the other colorways too, the neon green and the neon red. That will be incredible. I personally would love to get these pairs as well. I love them so much. Again, this was the flagship at the time and not a lot of kids could afford it. $130 was a lot of money, but Reebok brought the tech and everybody got excited about it. So yeah, that's pretty much it, guys. Hit the thumbs up if you like the video, stay tuned to the channel, subscribe if you're new. Go through the size with these. If you have any questions, ask me always. I try to respond as quickly as possible on the comments. But true to size, they fit perfectly well with no issues whatsoever. Of course, we're having genuine leather on the front, stepping comfort and braking time at 0. So you're gonna love these all the time. As always, guys, you have a wonderful day.